with uterus didelphus, a medical condition which is thought to affect around 1 in 3,000 women. It means that she has 2 vaginas.
But Hazel's condition is even more complicated, making her 1 in a million. She's here to explain, along with Dr. Dawn Harper. And we read through this morning going, no, it is extraordinary. But for you, growing up, when you were little, you didn't spot it, and neither did your mum.
No, I didn't know I was any different whatsoever.
So as a little baby, changing nappies and things like that, you really cannot see this.
No, even now. I went through examinations as I was growing up because I had certain problems, and no one even saw it then.
Yeah.
But I guess in hindsight, when you look back, there were signs, weren't there?
Yes.
And the first time that you noticed any sort of problem ever was when your period started at the age of 14.
That wasn't fun.
That was not fun, was it? Because really, you were getting 2 separate periods.
Well, we should explain. We should explain than the other.
Yeah, we should explain before we get into that how you're built.
Yeah.
And how that works, because we've got to... Dawn, would you explain just here what this means?
Interestingly, when your uterus develops, when you're a baby in the womb, it starts as 2 tubes. And the normal thing to happen would be for those tubes to fuse, and then the septum breaks down and you form 1 uterus. What's happened with Hazel is that septum never broke down, and the 2 tubes have made 2 separate uteruses and 2 vaginas and 2 cervixes, which obviously has huge implications for you in terms of things like smear tests and so on.
Yeah.
And you mentioned 1 in 3,000. I think it is relatively common to still have a septum or a fibrous band within the uterus, or a slightly abnormal shape to the uterus. And that's the kind of thing that I might pick up on one of my patients who we might be doing an ultrasound, for example, for a completely unrelated problem, and it's just something that we find. To actually have 2 completely separate uteruses is much rarer, and as you say,
which is why we get into that moment of you could have 2 periods.
Yes. Well, yeah, I mean, we all ovulate left and right alternatively, like all other women, but obviously if you don't know which side you're ovulating from, and you didn't know that you had 2 sides, you can be...
You wouldn't understand why.
Sometimes you'd end up in a bit of a mess, and other times not.
Gosh, that must... I mean, at that age, when you're just starting your period anyway, and it's all a bit confusing, it's all a bit messy, and it's all a bit horrid, it must have been terrible for you.
It wasn't nice. I mean, I had friends, I'd try and explain to them having problems, and, I'd say to them, they had no idea what I was doing wrong. They looked even more confused than I did.
Well, because you did ask one of your friends, didn't you? And
I did.
I'll get you to explain this, that you didn't... You were saying, well, which hole?
My more embarrassing story is when I actually did ask a friend. I said, do you have any problem working out which hole to put in? She thought I was putting them up my bottom.
Oh, which of course was not the case at all.
Nothing like that.
And very difficult for you then to go and broach someone else and talk to them about it.
I think I pretty much kept my mouth shut after that for quite a while.
So, at what stage did you become alerted to this? Because you hadn't noticed. You had a look occasionally. You checked yourself. You went to the doctor because of your heavy periods.
I was 18 before I found out.
And it was a boyfriend that says...
Yeah, my first serious boyfriend. He said there was something different about me. I was trying to broach subjects, to do with my sex life, things like that, and he said, well, maybe there's something wrong with you. He said, I've always noticed there's this thing here, and I completely freaked out and went to go and check on it.
Sex hadn't been particularly pleasurable up to that point, because you have 2 vaginas.
I'd say that they're 2 very separate things. I think it's perception and immaturity on the other half's part.
But 2 hymen to break.
Yes.
So you lost your virginity twice.
Yes. Yeah.
Which that in itself is going to be uncomfortable. And what about sex itself? Was that uncomfortable if you didn't quite get the position right?
Yeah, if you're not aware that you've got this, it can be really uncomfortable, because I thought I was having cystitis. I thought I was having urine infections from a young age, when I actually wasn't. I was tearing the middle septum.
Oh, goodness.
Because if you're not aware about it, I mean, it's not a problem now. I have no problems. It hasn't happened for years and years.
Because you know, so you know how to deal with it and cope with it, which is knowledge is
perception.
Power. So when your boyfriend has told you about this, and you've then run into the bathroom, shut the door, got a mirror and had a look, and realised, you've rung your mum straight away, haven't you? And it was your auntie who works at the hospital and got you an appointment with the gynaecologist straight away. And of course, they've done an ultrasound.
They did all the tests, and they told me within a couple of hours what it was. But the lady had such a heavy accent, I still didn't understand what she was telling me, and I just sat there in the waiting with these notes going, no idea what I've just been told.
And it's a big thing to be told, because it's unusual. And and also one of those subjects that's slightly embarrassing, because you think, oh gosh, who can I talk to this about?
Yeah, I can honestly say I wasn't. As soon as I found out what it was, I told everybody. I thought it was amazing. It's definitely an icebreaker at parties.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Well, you've shown your friends, haven't you?
definitely. If women want to have a look, I'm quite happy to show them.
Yeah.
It's not something I'm embarrassed by.
It does have implications, doesn't it, as far as getting pregnant is concerned?
Yes.
And so what are the issues there?
I'm told that if I get pregnant, that I've got to be very aware that I don't get pregnant again in the other side.
Yes.
Because you can have pregnancies that are months apart. You have to be really careful because.
Gosh.
Yeah, I mean, there's an increased risk of giving a breech birth. I've been told that. There's a risk while bleeding while pregnant. That can basically I've got to be taking
Very
a lot better care.
But you
of.
could also, you could, I suppose, be pregnant quite a way down the line.
Yeah.
And have sex and get pregnant with
That's right.
a younger baby.
Yes, I mean, there are other issues in that the hormones of pregnancy would make that less likely.
Yeah.
But one of the big problems is that because you've effectively got a smaller cavity, and obviously the uterus is designed to expand to accommodate the baby. You were talking about breech births, but actually you can have all sorts of different lies of the baby. So sometimes they'll be lying slightly on their side or crossways, and so the chances of someone like you needing a caesarean section to deliver a baby would be much higher.
What about, you were offered sort of surgery, weren't you? Sort of.
Initially, I was. They offered to remove the septum, the dividing septum from the cervix, the entrance, and I refused to have the surgery.
And the reason for that was there was sort of, I don't know what
They
you...
have to kind of treat you like they would like a post-op transsexual, because if you have something removed from an area like that, there's a risk of healing back together. So
It's like almost like a scar tissue type thing.
you
building
have
up.
to have it separated all the time, and it can be very uncomfortable and causes scar tissue there anyway. So I was like,
And like you
well,
said, for you, this is something that is just so normal now, and you know how to
if
cope
I had
with
3
it.
wishes, it wouldn't be on the list of things to change.
No.
And
Wouldn't
so
waste it.
and hysterectomy is not an issue for the second uterus. That's
No,
not
until I have children, I don't see a point of
Technically,
even...
that would be very difficult
Yeah.
because they're sort of. So we don't tend to do that.
Yeah.
What we do sometimes do is open up so that you've got the one cavity, but
Yes.
you'd probably still be left with your 2 cervixes, and I think that's an issue for your smear tests and so on.
Yeah.
It's important that when somebody takes a smear,
check both.
that they take from both, because you could be given the all clear in one cervix. You've got
And you're
another.
terribly honest about this, so I'm going to ask you now.
Okay.
As far as your relationships, and you've got your long-standing boyfriend now. Do you have to be careful? Is it sore, painful? Does it
No,
hurt
not
in
at
any way?
all, not at all. I mean, I've never entered into a relationship without explaining the difference about me anyway. Never had a bad reaction for it either. But yeah, as long as they're aware of what it is, there's no issues whatsoever. I have a great sex life now.
Well,
Yeah.
a choice.
Well, yes. I can't get one for the rest of their life. My fella has 2.
Thank you very much indeed. I think it's so important, because there will be people who will be watching and who may be in the early stages of thinking, actually, although it's very, very limited, I may have this, and it is quite important to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to have.
Yeah, no, well done. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for
Thank
coming.
you
It's
very much.
absolutely
Thank
fascinating. Thank you. If you've been affected by anything we've just discussed, there are helplines on our website, itv.com/thismorning.
Right, coming up.